Everybody, and welcome back to Air Tycoon Online 3. This episode, I probably just want to, probably chill, talk about maybe some real life stuff, maybe not, or maybe we can just talk about the game. I'm not exactly sure yet, and just continue to um, do our thing with making routes and having a fun time. Now, the reason I kind of wanted to just I want to have a little bit of an airplane talk because actually it was not too long ago. It was just before I got sick um, that I was in Seattle and I went to the good old flight museum there. And me, big aviation fan. I'm a big fan of modern aviation than a lot of the much older stuff that you can find there too, which was still pretty interesting. I don't remember much of that honestly. But a lot of the more modern things are really like kind of interesting to me because when you go and see like something like the original 747 and you realize that bad boy was built in the likes of 1960s, like your mind really is just so blown away by what humans are capable of because that is just unbelievable. Like I don't really know what to think because in 1969, the best computers in the entire world um, had computing power magnitudes of less powerful than a modern day iPhone. You hold in your hand a computer more powerful than any scientist, researcher, engineer had access to in those days. And they were able to build a safe plane the size of a freaking apartment building in 1960. Like, man, I am just so impressed by what people are capable of. It is truly amazing. Um, and I find it just kind of interesting how, while technology has gotten better, the planes have gotten bigger, not faster actually, because that's a little bit less efficient, uh, but and magnitudes of times more efficient and technologically advanced. I think one of the more interesting things is that the planes have not gotten safer, or like they have gotten safer, but um, they've gotten much safer. I'm sorry, that's not what I meant to say. Um, but they've somehow ended up with kind of worse engineering practices. Um, and what I mean by this is, let's take for example the modern day Boeing. There's no route to Amsterdam. That is interesting. Um, let's take the modern day 737, right? This is a plane which should be um, completely safe, completely whatever. And it might be now with the fixes they have, but how could something like that possibly happen? How has the engineering culture at Boeing changed to be so engineering focused and just focused around excellence to kind of be slacking? This is kind of one of the mysteries, and anybody in the comments who knows, please let me know how this happened. Is how did Boeing end up kind of not in the ownership of, but with its most important leaders, such as the previous CEO in charge of the Max development program, for example, coming from McDonnell Douglas? Because I find this kind of an interesting situation. So Boeing was a more engineering focused company um, where their engineering products were extremely good, right? And this was kind of the main like core of their company is just by having the best engineering and being the most focused on that and having the best product because of that. Um, People really trusted them and they were just the best airplane manufacturing company around, right? And McDonnell Douglas, while a good competitor, was a little bit more focused on the business elements. And there are a lot of industries where focusing on the business elements of a company can be the most important thing, but aviation is not one of those, right? So McDonnell focused on this, and because of that, they had many engineering hiccups. People remember the extreme number of safety issues with the DC-10. Of course, that was What does DC even stand for? Oh God, Douglas something. I'm sorry. I'm not the most knowledgeable about aviation history, right? I'm a fan who ended up learning a little more than the casual person, basically. Um, so there was kind of fiascos involving the DC-10. Um, After the DC-10, they produced the MD-11. Of course, there were some short haul planes, but besides kind of passenger comfort issues, I've been in an MD-80, and I swear to God, that thing is the reason why I'm a little bit more deaf than I want to be. I was in the passenger seat that is right next to the engine in that plane, and my God, that is not friendly for your eardrums, guys. Would not recommend. Um, yeah, anyhow. Um, so that was my experience in kind of a McDonnell Douglas plane. That the MD-11 was also kind of a disaster class. The main issue with the MD-11, of course, was the range fiasco. As when it was released, it was advertised to have a range of something like 6,900 nautical miles, which I think was eventually achieved with the ER, with a lot of computer aided flight. Of course, that plane is very famous for being aerodynamically unstable, um, which of course means that the plane needs a computer aid to fly, basically. Otherwise, it would kind of flip or be very difficult to control because the center of gravity um, was basically at the same location, or could even be slightly behind the center of lift, which of course anybody who knows kind of flight characteristics knows is probably a very um, undesirable kind of condition you wouldn't want your plane to be in, right? So, um, yes, like McDonnell Douglas was a company which would deal with these kind of issues because they kind of put business first and engineering second as a priority. And of course, because they did this, they were eventually bought out by Boeing, right? A company which kind of had the the right priorities in a market that is so unbelievably focused on safety, which of course I think is a good thing. It is really good to hold up a very high standard here, and why would you create a lower standard um, when you could uphold something like that, right? So of course Boeing eventually won, and they bought McDonnell Douglas. And what I want to like really know is, how did the McDonnell Douglas leadership then end up in charge of Boeing? Boeing was, I mean, don't want to say it too directly, but they were just the better company, right? So how did the leadership in charge of the company, which failed hard enough to get bought out by the other company, then end up in charge? This is something that really like kind of doesn't interest me, but it's kind of like one of those things which is like, huh, how did that exactly happen? Because that is not what you'd kind of expect, right? Um, Anyhow, having said that, like since um, McDonnell Douglas leadership, they also did an incredible amount of stock buybacks, right? That was one of their primary focuses. Instead of spending a lot of the money they had made, I think 40 billion's worth on improving research and development, hiring more competent engineers and that kind of thing, training employees, etc. They spent that buying back stock. And of course, what could possibly go wrong? Oh, right, two crashes in short succession. The stock is now crashed, therefore making the value of those stock buybacks significantly decreased. Well, I guess these are the kind of dangers of playing with only financial levers instead of um, the things that are most core to the company. This is extremely disappointing, basically, as a fan. Um, so, anyhow, yes, since then, there's been all sorts of funny quality control reports too from Boeing. Um, Probably my favorite of which is from the Charlotte Boeing factory, which is, of course, is a relatively newer factory. So I do want to give a little bit of kind of leeway in maybe like the employees there. I mean, I don't blame the employees, right? you blame the people hiring the employees and the people training the employees because those are the people who kind of should take more responsibility in these problems, right? But um, the quality control issues I'm talking about specifically are they found foreign object debris in the fuel tanks. Um, they found general quality control issues where certain things may not have been usually trivial. The most important safety critical things were typically installed properly, right? But there's a lot of quality control issue reports of foreign object debris in fuel tanks, um, like such stuff such as bolts, ladders, drills, even like ladders is just the funniest one. Like that doesn't even sound real. Like they found a ladder in the fuel tank, and it's like yes, they did. They found a ladder in the fuel tank. Um, what the? Did I not click on that? Ah, yeah, it's super annoying when you don't click on the city properly and you don't see the competitive routes. Yeah, anyhow, it's just so funny. Like you don't see that from the Everett factory. I think that's where the other Boeing factory is, right? So, um, yeah, it's obvious, like just quality control and like real problems with uh, starting up in a new location with kind of I guess employees which have been less exposed to kind of a solid engineering practice. So yeah, I really do hope that Boeing can improve again and become a not a real competitor, but a better competitor to Airbus. Um, I'm a big fan of planes. Why would I like it when one company is outperforming the other considerably? But I think the Boeing Airbus order book is now something like 2-1 for Airbus. So good for Airbus, but yeah, Boeing should really try and step it up. Anyhow, these are all my new routes, kind of. They look pretty good. I do maybe want to pass the turn to see how much money we make. So yeah, let's go ahead and pause until then. And we are back, guys. And if you saw that just before I unpause, I'm not sure if you saw, but the World Traveler Index went up by zero point 0.0, which is quite an amusing result. Um, yeah, anyhow, let's see how we did in the last turn. Yeah, we're making 60K a tick now. That's pretty good profit for only having have had real airplanes for basically 2 turns. That's the power of 23 Boeing 747s. Just take a quick look at the ones I actually bought to see the difference. Like these are making about 10K each. Um that's really nice, of course. And then if we take a look at the other ones I'm operating, let's see if any of them have reached good load factors. Um, is this a leased one or a owned one? Let me take a look. Here we can see that the depreciation cost is 2K per turn, which means a leased one. So a leased 747 is making about 7 to 8K per turn, which is actually still very, very good. Um, so yeah, one thing I have noticed is I'm quite sure that the margins in online are better than offline, which is good because the offline margins are really uh, genuinely actually quite difficult to manage. Like we are running a pretty um, generously kind of inefficient airline in the sense that we're doing a service investment cost of a maxed out 7 right now. Um, and with pretty high investment costs, also, we're really gunning for Paris and Frankfurt, as you guys can see, as these will basically be our first. I can spare an extra 2K per turn. Um, these are basically going to be our first two major bases. I'm also, I think, investing in a bunch of the other major cities in Europe. Europe really is going to be my base focuses so I can execute my stopover strategy. And then later on, I'll add some North American bases. Of course, there's many, many slots available in online, it looks like, so slots won't be a problem. So I can go in and compete with those North American routes whenever that feels appropriate for the situation of the game. A lot of these routes will be basically have to be direct, which means like direct 707s to routes like these, which do make good money, like 250 to 300 business and tour. Um, but a much better route would be a European city connecting with a stopover between cities with 200 to 50 to 300 business and tour, of course. So, yeah, anyways, that's basically all I wanted to show this episode. I'm probably gonna be playing until the with the similar strategy of Tuplevs and 747s for a long time. I don't know how many episodes I'll make where I do so. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Hello, everybody. Um, I actually decided to record this on the fly. I might append it to the end of the last episode, just so we can get a little bit of extra. So, what's going on to make me kind of excited? Well, if we take a look at, hold up, this recording thing is exactly in the way of what I want to click. Okay, here we go. If we take a look here, we have finally completed the 500,000 passengers quest, which is, of course, going to give us $200,000 to continue expanding with. So, how is my expansion going? Well, I don't remember how much I was making at the beginning of last episode, but it can't have been too much since we've been increasing considerably turn after turn for quite a few turns now. So, if we take a look at our routes, we can see that the 747s are starting to become very, very effective. Yeah, if we take a look here, each one of them is making at least 9K, which is actually better than I thought. And yeah, I really do think that the planes might perform a little bit better in Air Tycoon online compared to offline, which I think is a good thing overall, because otherwise it might be pretty hard. And as you can see, I did indeed make the first class way too big on some of these flights. That's okay. I think originally I didn't expect the competition flight to have a good first class competitor. So that's probably why that's happening here. For other routes, the first class is doing a little bit better, but still not too great. Here we can see we have another decent first class competitor. I think the place where there are some routes where the large first class is probably actually doing well. I would imagine this is one of them. Yeah, this is the same size first class, but it's full. I guess it's just because London to what's it called? Where is this? Los Angeles produces such a high amount of first class travelers, and yeah, there's a lot of 747 competitors compared to when I opened a lot of these routes. So I think that's probably one of the reasons, kind of why we're getting better than expected competition. I'm sure when I opened this route, this competitor was not using a 747, and now they are, which of course makes a very big difference also on how much I'm making. So yeah, the first class is a little bit too big. If I ever redo the cabin or get the chance to reconfigure it, I'll definitely reconfigure the first class, maybe 30 or 20% smaller than what I made at least. Just to kind of more evenly distribute that among the other two classes. On the other hand, you can see my cabin configurations for the other flights is quite well balanced. 85, 82, 80, that's all very close kind of, so we're doing pretty good on cabin configuration there. You really want to balance it as evenly as possible to maximize your profit, right? So yeah, I do believe economy fills up a little bit faster, and the premium classes do get the chance to catch back up later. But as you can see, perhaps I still need to make my economy even a little bit bigger for slightly less popular routes. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and place our 747 order. I think I want to shrink this to 9 first class seats and shrink my business class down by maybe 5 more seats to give more room for economy. If once again, if I do it too much, we're gonna have a really like sudden effect on the passenger counts, which it will probably be a bit too dramatic, and I don't want to do that. So yeah, let's go ahead and order some of these. Ba ba ba. Gonna need more Tupolev. I need a couple Tupolev 134s. I don't remember if I ever remember to shrink the cabin. I did not remember to shrink the cabin for the Tupolev 134. Uh-oh. That's okay. I do need a couple of these, though. Yeah, I'm flying a few of them with normal cabins then, which is, whoops. That's a bit of a mistake, but honestly not a game changer or anything too bad. And we'll just continue to try and maximize these. Let me make sure I have prop and cabin configuration for my 747s too, right? Because that's by far the most important. Like seriously, just such a good and just overpowered plane. I'm so happy that they include the Tupolevs and the 747s. Tupolevs are of course not overpowered, but just kind of taking advantage of the really flawed game system that lets you, lease so many 747s. So yeah, it's quite funny and quite enjoyable. So just go ahead and attempt to lease a couple more of these. If we're lucky, we'll be able to do one more. If not, um, well, we don't have enough. So that's okay. We're like 1K short. Um, and let's go ahead and lease two more Tupolevs, or just purchase these, I guess. Sorry, excuse me once again. I'm still a little bit sick. Let's just order as many as we can. Just get those flying. Anyhow, that being said, one thing you might have noticed if you've been very eagle-eyed in the last 2 minutes, I have 2 less credits than I did in the last recording. Where did those go? Sneaky little bugger trying to cheat when we're not paying attention, right? Like, no. What I actually did is I decided the most fun way I could use these credits, um, although still not a fully like emulative thing that you could do without credits, is you can go spy on your opponents because this is just one of the most fun things you can do uh, with credits, in my opinion, is just see how are they doing. So my main opponent is making 380,000 per turn this tick, which is of course really good. So we're gonna need to catch up to that eventually, basically. Um, One thing I also like to do is kind of see where they're flying from and what are their routes and primary money makers. And as you can see, they have a lot of mid-haul routes from Asia to his two hubs, right? And up to long haul. He is a gemmer. I can tell this because when necessary, at least, we can see he uses high range extensions so he can, reach certain routes he wants to. And he's not a big gemmer, but he does have enough, I guess, and uses them somewhat liberally. If you take a look at his inventory here and look at his 707s, we'll see there's a good amount of range and even double range extended ones. So we can see he's not fully free to play, but he's not egregious gemmer. I don't know if he's gemming cash. He definitely might go for airports later on. I'm not sure, but we'll see. I do not plan to go for airports because I think while they're a very good investment, if you're not the most active or have uh, too much cash, which will eventually happen in Air Tycoon Online, um, I do think I don't want to do so in order to succeed myself, as that's not really something that I would enjoy needing to do, is like using airports. Also, people without buying credits wouldn't be able to kind of follow along, where you could reasonably but not easily follow along with everything I'm doing now in your own world. Like you can't spy on your opponents willy-nilly, but you do get enough gems to if you purchase the thing to get the all the slot and plane unlock slots. I think that's like $20 worth of credits. And then you have a little bit extra. I might have done $20 last time just to get a little bit extra, but I don't remember. Anyhow, yeah, what was I trying to say? Oh yeah, but I'm very easy at losing my train of thought. Okay, whatever, that is fine. We are just going to continue to open routes as if nothing happened because I'm a forgetful person and forgot what my train of thought was. So yeah, anyhow, oh yeah, I just didn't want to um, make my airline impossible to emulate for anyone trying to follow along. Um, yeah, with a free to play account. Anyways, um, yeah, just continue to look for pretty standard 747 routes, which is at least 250 business or tour on each end. It's actually starting to get just a little bit tricky, as there's not too many cities at all left on the Asian side which can qualify. Um, so one thing you can start to do is make routes that end quite close to Asia, um, like something like this or this, and then stop over that to somewhere far in North America or South America. But of course, there's still a few cities left in Asia which we can use. I'm of course really happy that they have um, new cities in China like Zhenzhou and I don't I don't know how to say that, but that city there, yeah, I'm pretty happy about that once again, just because that will let you just have more stopover options, and well, that could never be a bad thing. I guess it could be a bad thing if there's so many stopover options that there's no longer any thought or process into which ones you want to open. It just becomes a race to click all of them. Kind of like the way it becomes in Air Tycoon um, offline. That can be a bit tedious. I don't want the game to become like a clicking race of who can open routes between an infinite pool faster. So I think this is a little bit better. We need a little bit of route management along with route creation. Otherwise, there's not enough kind of things to keep you entertained in the game. Anyhow, I really wish there was an airport here. That's a great city. Um, yeah, Nanjing as well, actually. Also, wish the 747-100 just had a little bit more range. Just a little bit more range on that plane would serve it super well in a lot of situations. Um, I wish you could purchase range extenders on a leased aircraft. Um, like yeah, here's a little poll, guys. If you're still listening at this point in the video, first of all, thank you very much for your attention. I really do appreciate it. Uh, Second of all, would you feel it'd be fair if I use range extenders? I don't think so. Um, I don't particularly believe that I should. So I'll probably avoid it for now. Let's see. Did I remember to set my prices correctly? No, I didn't. So let's go ahead and do this before we open the Tupolev routes, which require a price of 1.2. Yes, I think we're about at the point in the game where you want to create your routes with basically the correct default pricing. The motivation behind this is as the routes grow, it's really hard to sort out routes which aren't performing well versus routes which are just kind of in the growth phase of routes. And then you reduce the price because, well, the plane isn't full, even though the route is just growing. And the route does grow, and then you could have been making more when um, you're kind of just hampering yourself by having too high or low of a price. And none of that's really good. And you can see we end up with kind of pricing errors like Tupolev 124 is being priced too highly in order like too highly so that they don't become very profitable. That's not what we want. So let's go ahead and go through these and fix these manually. We're at the stage of the game where this is still easy. This becomes extremely difficult later on. So you have to be very careful when using global price modifiers not to do something like this. And I'm sure like there's some super clever way you can use the in-game tool filters to kind of like just figure this all out and not have this problem. But I'm not that smart, so I can't do it. And yeah, if you have some time, you can just do it manually also, so it's not that bad. Yeah. Anyhow, we do, however, at this point, just need to open a lot more Tupolev 124 routes. Yeah, I'm running out of monopolies, like literally just like cities somewhat near or near London that don't have competition. I just don't think there's just any left. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a city somewhere I've missed, probably that's close by and has an airport, like Bristol, that I haven't opened a route to. And like this isn't a very profitable route because the range is so close, but hey, it's a monopoly nevertheless, meaning I won't have to worry about so much competition. It holds a lot of slots, which is not too shabby. But like I'm sure there's some, but I think also there's just few enough left. Like, is this too short? Yeah, I think it is. Oh, I found another one. Okay, nice. But like there's a few of these routes here and there from that player which left about the time I joined. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and open the ones that are monopolies up for sure, and if not, find some competition routes we can open up instead. Also, what was this Tupolev 134? What 134 is for? Well, these were for flying to Athens. Just charge 1.15 as there's probably gonna be competition there. And Istanbul, respectively, as these will be future hubs as well. I just want all the European hubs These are the kind of hubs we will want to open the latest, meaning we're just going to do a kind of just above minimal investment into them to get them growing real slowly, to kind of time them up for the last like hubs we want to open in Europe. Let's go ahead and do this. Yeah, I probably should have done the 61% satisfaction option for those other routes as well. So yeah, those those two have 134s. Let's go ahead and change the investment values here. So let's go ahead and just invest like 4 ticks, which is basically nothing. Like 700 is not something you'd really notice on the scale of this game. So we're just gonna kind of do that and let that kind of cook in the background, as our other routes grow and our most important hubs grow quickly too. I will actually probably show you guys that in a sec because that's pretty important. Let's see. Thessaloniki, that's a bit too far. Yeah, and as you can see, like, even though I'm like trying quite hard, I don't think there's that many good nearby routes left, period. So I think it's time to go for, well, this only has 2 schedules, so that route's actually open. I wish you could kind of sort competitor routes, or like make it visually appear like how much service they're actually providing. You know what I mean? Because this person is only providing 2 schedules worth of competition. I'd compete with that. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't compete with 45 schedules worth. And instead of having any delineation of how many people are competing on a route, in this game, all we really get is a little line which doesn't tell you very much at all. Let's see if this is like a 707 or something like that. I don't want to compete with it. Ooh, 727. Yeah, it's Boeing plane, but the satisfaction is still awful. So that's fine. Yeah, competing with Western-made planes is usually more difficult, specifically like Boeing, Airbus, etc. They're given very high base satisfaction values, which just makes competition a little bit more difficult. Wow, I'm really pushing kind of how bad of a route I'm willing to compete with too. Like, I've already done like the majority of the better cities, I guess. But yeah, this is just how it's gonna go. We're gonna like start competing with worse and worse and worse cities until like, we're just opening routes for the sake of opening routes. It feels like instead of actually opening up good and profitable routes. The good and profitable routes are once again the 747s. Anyways, with that in mind, let me show you guys. What was I trying to show you guys? Something or other. Oh no, this is why having a short trip. I need to start writing stuff down or something like that. Anyways, yes. I remember now. I don't remember where that tab is. Unfortunately, where is this? Here we go. Yes, investment costs. Sorry about that. So we're currently spending 60K on services and 52K on advertising, and we are advertising in these cities in priority. So, um, I'm doing New York. I have not picked an Asian hub yet. I should probably go do that before I kind of really regret it. And I think Beijing is just like a more relaxed than usual looking Beijing. Tokyo is of course a good option too. But its location means it's not my favorite for connecting to mainland Europe, but it has even less competition, so maybe I might just do Tokyo. Do I have a flight to Tokyo? Yes, I do. We'll start investing in this. So yeah, I'm doing very heavy investments into many cities, with a very high priority on European cities. As we're doing max on Frankfurt and Paris, as we want to get these two going up as soon as possible. Basically, yeah, I don't have too much time to wait to invest in these because like people are already growing out of them. I don't want every route to be taken by the time I get there, and basically every European hub: Madrid, Barcelona, Moscow, Rome, Amsterdam, etc. So why every European hub is, once again, I love my stopover strategy. Have you ever seen me do other kind of routes? Probably not, right? And because only the yellow cities on the map allow you to create hubs through them, of course, any city can be at the end of a hub, of a stopover route. European cities have the really cool kind of location where they can basically stop over any two cities on Earth, some way or another. Rome, for example, here, you could stop over any city in North America, right? And there's so many cities on the other side of the globe that you'd have something to stop over it to. Now, from the other side of the globe, there's also a lot of cities, right? Um, and you can stop over these routes either all the way to North America or even just to within Europe, to nearby places. So that's kind of like the special property of Europe is you can have literal infinite stopover options, which means you don't need as big of a hub to drive a lot of demand. Um, what this means is I'll probably be focusing a lot on smaller stopover plane types like 707s. Um, I think the next good small stopover capable plane is the 767, and then the A310-300 will be, I think, a very, very important one as well. Um, as the A310-300 is extremely small, extremely efficient for the time, um, and will let us, do really good things. And of course, the 787 in the future, or maybe even like smaller variants of the A350, will be really good as well. Anyways, that's all for today. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.